In our headlines on this Thursday afternoon, November 30th, here in South Korea. Senior Secretary for Policy Planning Lee Kwon-sop has been promoted to Director of a new entity for policy planning that will work directly under President Yoon Suk-yeol, as is the current case for the Chief of Staff and the National Security Office. Seoul Central Bank has decided to keep its benchmark interest rate frozen at 3.5% for the 7th straight session, taking into account a host of both internal and external uncertainties. Meanwhile, over in the Middle East, mediators are racing against time to ensure a further extension in ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas to allow for more hostages to return home as the current deal ends. A new entity for policy planning has been created in a bid to bolster the Yoon administration's policy drive. An official announcement earlier on this Thursday revealed that Senior Secretary for Policy Planning Lee Kwon-sop will be promoted to director of this new entity and oversee its operations directly under President Yoon Suk-yeol. At present, only the Chief of Staff and the National Security Office work directly under the President, with the Chief of Staff overseeing policy planning. Now, the Director of Policy, that is Lee Kwon-sop, will be in charge of Senior Secretaries for Economic and Social Affairs, as well as the soon-to-be-created Senior Secretary for Science and Technology. Seoul Central Bank has decided to hold steady its benchmark interest rate for a 7th straight session at 3.5%. Our correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
South Korea's central bank has again kept its key interest rate unchanged at 3.5% as widely expected. The decision was announced on Thursday following a Monetary Policy Committee meeting.
Despite the higher-than-expected inflation growth, a slowdown is anticipated. Considering the impact of the prolonged monetary tightening of the US Fed and rising external uncertainty, including geopolitical risks, we have decided to keep a tightened monetary policy. The Board of Governors voted unanimously to maintain the current tightening stance.
For a 7th straight meeting, the Bank of Korea has decided to freeze the rate. The base rate has been held at 3.5% since February, following 10 consecutive rate hikes to tame inflation beginning in August 2021. Analysts say the central bank sees no need to raise a key interest rate solely to address soaring household debt, as it could further weaken consumer spending and investment. Also, despite concerns over the economic impact of the Israel-Hamas war, global oil prices are on a downturn due to an anticipated decrease in demand amid a global economic slowdown. Stabilizing the exchange rate between the Korean won and the US dollar is also thought to be a factor that contributed to the BOK's latest decision. Meanwhile, the BOK on Thursday maintained its economic growth outlook for this year at 1.4%, while it slashed the outlook for next year by 0.1 of a percentage point to 2.1% from the previous projection in August. Consumer price growth is expected to be at 3.6% this year, up from its previous forecast of 3.5%. The BOK also raised the figure for next year to 2.6% from 2.4%. Inflation slowed during the first half of this year, but it rebounded in August, and the increase expanded consecutively until last month to 3.8%, the highest in 7 months due to higher oil costs and rising prices for some agricultural goods. Meanwhile, experts note that it is challenging for the BOK to lower the benchmark interest rate ahead of the US. This is due to the steady rise in Korea's household loans since April of this year. Also, the interest rate gap with the US has already widened to a historical level of 2 percentage points, increasing the possibility of foreign capital outflows and depreciation of the Korean currency. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Korea's industrial production, retail sales and facility investment all lost ground on month in October, with the plunge in factory output posting its deepest in some 10 months. Our An Sung-jin explains.
South Korea's overall industrial production for October saw the highest on-month fall since April 2020. According to Statistics Korea on Thursday, an on-month decrease of 3.4% in the manufacturing sector pulled down the country's overall output by 1.6%. The dip in manufacturing production is largely attributed to a sluggish semiconductor output, which fell by 11.4%. This contrasts with the rebound in August and September, when both saw an on-month increase of nearly 14%. An official from Statistics Korea said the dip is due to greater chip production recorded at the end of the third quarter.
As exports increase, they tend to increase at the end of the quarter, and due to the base effect, the beginning of the next quarter tends to see a decrease. Especially with shipments in the semiconductor industry concentrated at the end of the quarter, the difference seems to be a bit more noticeable this time.
The expert also said the temporary holiday in October meant fewer working days, which also affected production, adding that despite lower production volume, as prices for memory chips rose, the industry is recovering. Alongside industrial output, production and facility investment all saw a drop, while food and beverage consumption was also down due to the base effect from September's Chuseok holiday. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
The OECD has maintained its growth projection for the world economy next year, but raised the outlook for the Korean economy on the back of stronger chip exports. Our Yoon has details.
The OECD forecasts a slow recovery in the global economy until the first half of 2024 due to monetary tightening and weakening trade growth. Nevertheless, it expects more improvements in the second half as monetary policy gradually eases. According to its latest economic outlook report released on Wednesday, the OECD forecasts growth of 2.7% next year, which is the same as its interim report in September. The world economy is expected to grow by 2.9% in 2023, before declining in 2024 and rebounding to 3% in 2025. This year's estimated growth has been revised from the previous projection of 3%. Factors supporting the world economy included a decline in global oil prices and a growing labor force. However, the OECD points out rising geopolitical tensions and lingering effects of monetary tightening as downward factors. In particular, the Israel-Hamas war is expected to increase economic uncertainty, although the impact on the global economy is expected to be limited. Meanwhile, despite easing inflation rates due to monetary tightening and falling energy prices, core inflation rates remain relatively high. The OECD adjusted headline inflation for the G20 countries, raising this year's outlook by 0.2 percentage points to 6.2% and by 0.1 percentage point to 5.8% for next year. However, unless there are additional shocks, it expects most countries to return to their inflation targets by 2025. As for South Korea, the OECD has slashed its growth forecast this year from 1.5% to 1.4%. On the other hand, the estimated figure for next year has been revised up from 2.1% to 2.3%. It explains that South Korea's exports are set to pick up with a recovery in chip demand. But it notes elevated debt servicing burdens, the percentage of monthly household income that covers housing costs and any other debts, and inflation as factors that will continue to weigh on private consumption and investment in the short term. For South Korea's inflation, it has raised the estimates for this year to 3.6% and 2.7% for next year. The OECD mentioned that due to rapid population aging, spending pressures are set to increase by 5% of the GDP by 2040, adding fiscal consolidation as a key to meet this challenge. Yoon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the U.S. economy expanded at a faster pace than expected the third quarter to post 5.2%. According to the U.S. Commerce Department on Wednesday, the figure stands above its earlier projection of 4.9%, as well as that of 5% by economists. Consumer spending, for its part, witnessed a less aggressive acceleration of 3.6% as compared to an estimate of 4%. The department is linking the latest findings to stronger business investment and government spending despite lingering recession concerns. Back here on the local front, Korea saw a remarkable number of foreign visitors last month. According to the Korea Tourism Organization on Wednesday, over 1.2 million people visited the country in October, marking a nearly 160% on-year surge. Now, this is the fourth month in a row that the country has surpassed 1 million visitors. In fact, the total number of visitors from January to October has surged past 8.8 million. Accordingly, authorities here believe Korea will easily achieve its target of 10 million tourists this year. By region, the greatest number of visitors during the 10-month period came from Japan with 1.8 million, followed by China and the U.S. It is a little over 7 in the morning in Gaza as we speak, and we have yet to hear whether or not negotiators have been able to reach a consensus on yet another extension in ceasefire between Israel and Hamas to allow for the return of more hostages. And while we wait for the latest regarding those ongoing efforts, our Arirang covers the events thus far.
Just hours before the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is due to expire, 16 hostages were released by Hamas, including 10 Israelis, 4 Thai nationals, and 2 Russians. They were handed over to the Red Cross late Wednesday, on the 6th day of the truce, and were taken to 5 different hospitals in Israel. In exchange, Israel also released 30 Palestinians, mostly women and minors. Over the first 5 days of the ceasefire, which began last Friday, Hamas released 81 hostages, and Israel freed 180 Palestinians from prison, mainly women and minors. With the extended truce set to expire at 7 a.m. on Thursday local time, mediators including Qatar, Egypt, and the U.S. continue to work toward another potential extension of the ceasefire. But the two sides have yet to reach an agreement, and on Wednesday, the Israeli Prime Minister vowed that fighting would continue.
There is no situation in which we do not go back to fighting until the end. This is my policy. The entire government is behind it, the soldiers are behind it, the people are behind it. This is exactly what we will do.
Amid growing international pressure to extend the truce, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Tel Aviv early on Thursday, his third trip to the region since the war broke out. He is set to meet with Israeli officials to discuss extending the temporary truce and boosting humanitarian aid into Gaza. He is also expected to visit the West Bank, where he will likely meet with Palestine's president. Meanwhile, Hamas has claimed a 10-month-old hostage, who is believed to be the youngest captive, was killed during Israeli bombing. The militant group said he was killed along with his 4-year-old brother and their mother. Israel, which has been accusing Hamas of using civilians as human shields, said it is assessing the claim. Peunji, Arirang News.
In other news, U.S. authorities have cracked down on a virtual currency mixer accused of assisting North Korea to finance its hostile weapons ambitions. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
The U.S. Department of Treasury on Wednesday sanctioned Senbet.io, a virtual currency mixer used by North Korean hacking group Lazarus Group, adding them to its Office of Foreign Assets Control sanctions list. The department added that the cryptocurrency mixer processed millions of dollars worth of virtual currency that the hacking group gained from its heists. Crypto mixing services improve the anonymity of transactions and are used by criminals to make funds harder to trace. The sanctions comes as the UN panel of experts on UN Security Council sanctions against the North said that Sinbad had laundered close to $100 million in Bitcoin for the Lazarus Group. The panel also explained that through its hacking group, North Korea was able to steal some $1.7 billion in cryptocurrency last year. The fresh sanction against the cryptocurrency mixer also comes as Pyongyang launched a space rocket last week to put a military reconnaissance satellite into orbit. However, both Seoul and Washington have been stepping up efforts to stop the regime's cryptocurrency theft and other cyber crimes as they can fund their weapons programs. The Treasury Department noted that Lazarus Group has operated for more than 10 years and is believed to have stolen over $2 billion worth of digital assets across multiple thefts. Lazarus Group was previously sanctioned by Washington in 2019 as a state-sponsored cyber hacking group of the North. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And here in Korea, an earthquake measuring 4 on the Richter scale hit the city of Gyeongju in Gyeongsangbuk-do province in the early hours of this Thursday morning. Our Shin Se-byuk has more.
A magnitude 4.0 earthquake hit the southeastern city of Gyeongju in Gyeongsangbuk-do province early morning on Thursday. According to the Korea Meteorological Administration, the earthquake struck 19 kilometers southeast of Gyeongju at 4:55 a.m. at a depth of 12 kilometers. The epicenter is some 20 kilometers away from the site of the country's strongest ever earthquake of 5.8 magnitude in 2016. 5 aftershocks followed, but there was no major damage reported. Following the quake, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo instructed related ministries and officials to be thoroughly prepared for disasters. Han ordered the Interior Ministry to make an assessment and take comprehensive measures to prevent potential damage. He also instructed the Ministries of Industry, Science and Land to conduct thorough inspections to prevent disruptions in vital national services like electricity, telecommunications, and transportation. Interior Minister Lee Sang-min also convened an emergency meeting to assess the situation in Gyeongju.
To prevent any further damage, we urge the relevant ministries, local authorities, fire departments and police to stay on high alert and closely monitor the situation.
Thursday's earthquake also prompted the Interior Ministry to raise the alert level of its Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters to Level 1, the lowest stage in the three-tier system. An earthquake alert of vigilance, the third highest of the four-stage system, has also been issued. Meanwhile, the Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Company, the operator of nuclear and hydroelectric plants in South Korea, said their plants remained unaffected by the latest quake and that they were running normally. The KMA said South Korea experienced 99 earthquakes with a magnitude 2 or higher this year, with the latest being the second strongest of the year. 신세벽, Arirang News.
Korean golfer Park Eun-bi has been named among the 32 candidates for the International Olympic Committee Athletes Commission. The IOC shared the list on its website on Thursday, and among the candidates, 4 are new members of the Athletes Commission. All athletes competing at the Paris Olympics are eligible to vote for the candidates during the Games. Once elected, the term is 8 years. Korean gold medalist in table tennis at the 2004 Olympics, Yoo Seung-min, is a current member of the commission, but his term ends after the Paris Olympics. Park Eun-bi is a 2016 Olympic champion and has won 21 LPGA tournaments, including 7 majors. The 4 remaining members of BTS are scheduled to start their military service next month. According to local media reports, RM and V will start their service on December 11th, while Jimin and Jungkook begin on December 12th. BTS members Jin, Suga and J-Hope have already begun their military service. The group's agency Big Hit Music has yet to confirm these dates. Should the remaining members enlist next month, all 7 BTS members will return to the band by June 2025.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Japan, a US military aircraft carrying 6 people has crashed off the southwestern island of Yakushima, killing at least 1. The US Air Force CV-22 Osprey hybrid plane was on a training mission on Wednesday afternoon when it disappeared from radar and reportedly crashed at sea. Japan's Coast Guard said 1 person was found dead, with no confirmation on the status of the others. The US has not yet commented on the situation. According to local media sources, the aircraft attempted to land at Yakushima Airport with 1 engine on fire, but failed to do so. Ospreys, which can function as both a helicopter and a turboprop aircraft, have a history of fatal crashes. In the UK, the first human case of infection of a new strain of swine flu has been detected. Confirmed by the UK Health Security Agency on Monday as virus A H1N2V, officials say that the infection was found during routine flu screening at a GP surgery in North Yorkshire. Officials have confirmed that the infected patient is now fully recovered after only suffering a mild illness, including respiratory symptoms. Experts are searching for the source of the infection, as the infected person was not known to have worked with pigs. While there has been previous outbreaks of similar swine flu, namely the H1N1 virus in 2009, there has only been 50 cases of H1N2 swine flu virus reported worldwide in the past 20 years. The French capital, Paris, announced on Tuesday that its metro ticket prices will almost double for the period of 2024 Olympics. Valérie Pécresse, the president of the Regional Council of Île-de-France, said that a single journey metro ticket will cost €4, which is roughly $4.38, for the period from July 20th to September 8th. That's almost double the current price of €2.10. The temporary increase in Paris metro ticket prices does not affect residents with monthly or yearly passes. Pécresse said that the prices will go up so that the Olympics are 100% accessible by public transport. The British Film and Television Academy on Wednesday announced its list of 2023 recipients of the BAFTA Breakthrough. Celebrating 10 years of BAFTA's breakthrough, the initiative aims at identifying and supporting a new generation of creatives in film, games and television in the UK, US and India. The Academy showcased a list of 42 creatives, including UK actors Bella Ramsey and Vivian Opera, US actor Amina Nieves and documentary director Amanda Kim, as well as Indian writer Kisley. Previous recipients include stars such as Tom Holland and Letitia Wright. Kim Siyoung, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. What a freezing day with biting wind. It felt like below -10 degrees Celsius in the capital. And despite the thermometer pointing at about 0 degrees this afternoon, it will feel sub-zero all day in Seoul, with a cold wave advisory expanding to more parts of the country today. Making matters worse, snow is expected to fall in Jeollado and surrounding regions. Those in West Coast regions will need to brace for snowstorms into Friday. The west coast of Chungcheong-namdo province could see up to 5 centimeters of snowfall. Mountainous regions on Jeju could see more than 10 centimeters. So please stay safe out on the roads. Afternoon highs should be 3 to 5 degrees lower than yesterday. Daejeon and Chuncheon topping out at 2 degrees, Gyeongju at 3 degrees this afternoon. Sunnier skies are in the forecast except in the areas of Jeollado province. The cold snap will subside this weekend. From then, we can expect much more comfortable temperatures through early next week under brighter skies. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions. And those are the headlines at this hour here in Korea. Coming up next is our panel session, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.